There is a structure on the floor of the Persian Gulf. It has been there for at least 10,000 years. It is not natural. The stone it is made from does not exist anywhere within 800 kilometers of where it was found. The geometry is precise, the arrangement is deliberate, and the formations are hollow with internal chambers that, according to every sonar scan conducted over the last 50 years, show no signs of water intrusion. Something sealed those chambers before the water rose, and it is still sealed. Here is what makes this different from every other underwater mystery you have heard about. We knew it was there before we found it, not because of modern sonar, not because of satellite imaging, not because of any technology developed in the last century, because it is described in detail on a clay tablet written 4,000 years ago by a civilization that had no submarines, no diving equipment, no way to see what was on the ocean floor. And they described it anyway, with measurements, with materials, with a precise geographical location, with a description of what it was built for and who built it. When marine archaeologists finally reached those coordinates in 2004, what they found on the seafloor matched the tablet. The expedition was shut down within 3 weeks. The data was never fully published, and the tablet has been sitting in a museum, cataloged and available since the 1850s. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you is not theory. It is not speculation. It is a documented sequence of physical evidence, published research, and declassified records that points in one direction so clearly that the only real question is why it has taken this long for anyone to put it together. The civilization that built the first cities also built the first libraries. The Sumerians were writing things down when the rest of the world was still passing knowledge from mouth to ear and hoping nothing got lost. They wrote trade records, legal codes, astronomical observations, medical procedures, agricultural manuals, and histories. They wrote with a precision that their entire civilization depended on, because when you are managing large-scale irrigation systems and long-distance trade routes and complex legal disputes between cities, imprecision kills people and destroys economies. We have been reading their tablets for 150 years, and the consistent finding, the one that shows up every time we check their geographical records against the physical world, is that they were accurate. Their descriptions of trade routes match the archaeological evidence of Bronze Age commerce. Their astronomical records, including eclipse predictions and planetary positions, have been verified against modern retroactive calculations and found to be correct. Their descriptions of cities match the locations where those cities were excavated. Their records of historical events correspond to physical evidence found in the ground. These were not people inventing mythology. These were people writing down what they knew, with the discipline of a civilization that understood exactly what accurate records were worth. So when those same people, using that same vocabulary, using that same precision, described a physical structure beneath the water, with dimensions, with materials, with an entrance location specified by geographical coordinates, the question is not whether they were confused. The question is what they were describing. The Sumerians called it the Abzu. Scholars translate this as a mythological concept, an underground freshwater ocean, a cosmic realm, a religious symbol for the source of wisdom and life. That translation is not wrong, but it is incomplete in a way that changes everything. Because the Sumerian word Abzu is used in two different contexts in the tablets. In religious and cosmological texts, yes, it refers to a divine realm. But in a specific subset of tablets, the technical tablets, the inventory tablets, the infrastructure tablets, the Abzu is described as a building, not a symbol, a building. It has a foundation, it has levels, 7 of them, each described with its function. It has an entrance located at a specific place where 2 rivers meet the sea. It has walls made from materials the Sumerians described with the vocabulary they use for construction materials, not with the vocabulary they use for divine substances. It has a lighting system. It has water management. It has what the Sumerians describe as a power source that draws from the earth itself. The Sumerians did not write about the Abzu the way they wrote about heaven. They wrote about it the way they wrote about the Temple of Ur or the city walls of Uruk, as a physical place with physical characteristics that physical people physically entered. And the geographical location they give for its entrance has been sitting on the floor of the Persian Gulf for 10,000 years. To understand how it got there, you need to understand what happened to the world at the end of the last ice age. 12,000 years ago, sea levels were dramatically lower than they are today. The Persian Gulf, which is today an average of 35 meters deep, with some areas reaching 200 meters, was largely dry land. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers, instead of emptying into the sea at the modern Iraqi coastline, ran significantly further south across an exposed river valley before reaching open water. That valley was fertile. It was watered by two major river systems. It had a climate that, by the standards of the Ice Age world, was exceptionally hospitable. Some researchers believe it may have been one of the most densely populated regions on Earth during that period. Then, the ice melted. Not gradually, not over thousands of years. The geological record shows the sea level rise at the end of the last ice age was punctuated by rapid events. Periods when the water rose meters in a century, fast enough for a human lifetime to witness coastlines disappearing, fast enough for everything built on the exposed land to be swallowed. The Sumerian flood narrative, the one that the biblical account of Noah was derived from, predating it by at least 1,000 years, describes exactly this. Not 40 days of rain, a catastrophic and unstoppable rise of water that consumed the known world, and from which only those who had warning and preparation survived.
The tablets say the Abzu was sealed before the flood came. The geology confirms the flood came. Whatever was built at the ancient river mouth has been on the seafloor ever since. In 1999, a team of researchers from the University of Exeter published a paper on Persian Gulf sediment cores. It was not a paper about ancient structures. It was a paper about paleoclimate data. But in the supplementary notes, almost invisible in the technical appendices, they mentioned something. Acoustic reflections from the northern Persian Gulf seafloor that were inconsistent with the surrounding geology. The pattern was anomalous. The reflections suggested subsurface formations that did not match natural erosion or sediment deposition patterns. They noted it was worth further investigation. Nobody investigated further. The same coordinates appeared in a 1987 Iranian marine survey that was conducted for oil exploration purposes. The survey flagged the formations as non-geological and recommended follow-up. The follow-up was never funded. The recommendation was filed. The same coordinates appear in a declassified records from a 1953 Danish research vessel that was conducting deep-sea biological surveys across the region. Their sonar showed geometric formations. The Cold War had made the Persian Gulf politically sensitive territory. The finding was logged, and the vessel moved on. 3 independent surveys across 5 decades. Different countries, different purposes, different equipment, the same coordinates, the same anomalous formations. None of them followed up. In 2004, a joint Turkish and German marine archaeology team sailed into the northern Persian Gulf with a specific research objective. They were mapping ancient coastlines from the pre-flood period, charting the topography of what the seafloor looked like before the Ice Age ended and the water rose. They were not looking for structures, but their sonar imaging returned something that stopped the expedition in its tracks. A cluster of formations, symmetrical, arranged in a deliberate pattern, made from stone that geochemical analysis determined was not native to the local geology. The nearest natural source of that specific stone type was hundreds of kilometers away in what is now Turkey. The lead researcher described the formations in the published report with careful, measured academic language. He said they were inconsistent with natural geological processes. He said they required further investigation before any definitive conclusion could be reached. He said the expedition had documented everything it could with the equipment it had, and that a follow-up excavation was urgently needed. He gave one interview to a German academic journal the following year. He said it was the most significant discovery the team had made. He said the patterns were not random. He said follow-up funding was being sought. No follow-up funding materialized. The structures are still there, on the seafloor, unmapped, unexcavated, at the location the Sumerian tablets specify. Now I want to show you what the tablets actually say about the inside of the Abzu, because this is the part that the mythology classification prevents people from reading carefully. The Abzu has 7 levels. The tablets describe each level's function with the vocabulary of infrastructure, not religion. The first level processed water. Not symbolically, the language used is the same language used in Sumerian texts describing actual water management systems in their cities. The second level processed air. The tablet uses a phrase that scholars have consistently translated as purification, which they then classify as religious ritual. But the Sumerian word being used is the same word used in texts describing the filtering of water for drinking. Purification in Sumerian technical writing means removing what should not be there. Applied to air in an underwater structure, that is atmospheric management. The third level stored knowledge. The tablets describe this as the place of the me. The me are described in other Sumerian texts as the fundamental principles of civilization: writing, mathematics, law, medicine, agriculture, music, the art of governance. Each me is described as a physical object that could be held and carried, stored in a location, transferred from one person to another. The fourth level is described as the place of biological processes. The language becomes harder to parse here because the Sumerians are clearly describing something they understood functionally but did not have technical vocabulary for. The 5th, 6th, and 7th levels are described in terms reference protection against forces the Sumerians called the unseen fire and the sky poison. Modern researchers have noted that these phrases are consistent with descriptions of radiation and atmospheric contamination, which would mean the lower levels of the Abzu were shielded against radiation, against contaminated air. Which raises a question that the mythology classification allows scholars to avoid asking. Why would a mythological realm need radiation shielding? The tablets that describe the Abzu are part of a larger corpus that describes the beings who built and inhabited it. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. Scholars translate this as the great gods who came down from heaven, and then they classify everything the tablets say about the Anunnaki as religious mythology. But the Sumerian tablets describe the Anunnaki with the same specificity they use for everything else: physical characteristics, behavioral patterns, technological capabilities, a point of origin, a purpose for being on Earth, and a departure.
The tablets say the Anunnaki arrived before Sumerian civilization existed, that before their arrival, humanity lived without writing, without agriculture, without cities, without law, and that after contact was established, all of those things appeared, not gradually, in what the tablets describe as a single generation. This is the part that the archaeological record cannot explain with the standard model. The appearance of writing in Mesopotamia around 3400 BCE is not preceded by a clear developmental sequence. It appears in the record essentially complete, with a large vocabulary, a complex grammar, and a sophisticated system of signs that shows none of the gradual evolution that written systems developed independently elsewhere show. The same is true of the mathematical system, the agricultural organization, the legal framework, the architectural knowledge required to build ziggurats and irrigation canals and city walls. We have been excavating Mesopotamia for 150 years. We have found the products of Sumerian civilization in extraordinary detail. What we have not found is the process by which they developed from scratch. The foundation layers that should be there are not there in the way they should be. The Sumerian answer to where it came from is consistent across every text that addresses the question. It came from the Abzu, from the beings who lived there, given to humans directly. In 1513, Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis created a map of the world. The map is real. It sits in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. It has been studied by cartographers, historians, and geographers for a century. The map shows Antarctica. Specifically, it shows the coastline of Antarctica as it appears beneath the ice before glaciation covered it. The accurate subglacial coastline of Antarctica was not known to modern science until a coordinated international survey using sonar was completed in 1949. In 1960, Captain Lorenzo Burrows of the United States Air Force wrote a formal letter to the Piri Reis Map Committee confirming that the map showed the subglacial topography of Antarctica with an accuracy that was, in his word, impossible to explain by the cartographic knowledge of the 16th century. Piri Reis himself wrote in notes preserved alongside the map that he did not create this information. He compiled it from older maps. Specifically, he referenced maps of great antiquity that he found in the libraries of Constantinople, maps that had been collected from civilizations whose names he did not know. Constantinople, before it became Istanbul, was the inheritor of the library traditions of the ancient Mediterranean world, including the libraries that had collected and preserved Mesopotamian knowledge, Sumerian knowledge. Someone, long before Piri Reis, had been somewhere that allowed them to accurately map a continent that was under ice, and they wrote it down. The way the Sumerians wrote everything down, because they understood that accurate records outlast the civilizations that create them. The question of who made those original maps is the same question as who built the Abzu, the same question as who told the Sumerians what civilization required before they had developed it themselves, the same question that the tablets address directly and that the classification of mythology allows the academic world to avoid. Let me show you where the evidence leaves us. A 4,000-year-old clay tablet describes a structure on the sea floor of the Persian Gulf with specific measurements, specific materials, specific levels and functions, and a specific entrance location based on the geography of the ancient coastline before sea levels rose. Sea level data confirms that the location described was dry land 12,000 years ago and has been underwater since. 3 independent marine surveys across 5 decades detected anomalous non-geological formations at the coordinates specified in the tablet. None were followed up. A 2004 joint Turkish-German expedition confirmed the formations using sonar and geochemical analysis. The lead researcher described them as the most significant discovery the team had made. The expedition was concluded. No follow-up was funded. The same tablets that describe this structure contain astronomical records that have been verified as accurate, geographical records that match excavated cities, historical records that correspond to archaeological evidence. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513, accurately shows a continent that was not discovered until 1820 and not accurately mapped until 1949. Its creator said he copied it from ancient sources. The Sumerian tablets say the Abzu was sealed before the flood. They say it was built to last. They say what is inside it has not been removed. Every survey conducted at those coordinates has found formations that should not be there. No survey has been allowed to go further. The tablet is in the museum. The formations are on the sea floor. The sonar data is in the archives. The expedition reports are in the academic record.
What is inside the Abzu? What the Sumerians said was preserved there, what the beings who built it left behind when they sealed it and departed, is still there. Behind 10,000 years of water, behind a seafloor that 2 governments have so far declined to allow anyone to excavate, behind 6 tablets that describe exactly what you would find if you went in. In the next video, I will show you those tablets, every level, every chamber, everything the Sumerians said is still inside. Because the directions they left work, the geography they recorded is accurate, and whatever they found important enough to seal away and document in extraordinary detail 4,000 years ago is still waiting at the bottom of the sea, exactly where they said it would be.